Welcome back as the World Cup continues. A lot of folks roaming around America from all parts of the universe. And you've been keeping up with them, but we have known. This is Freddie, who went down to the Plains, went to Waffle House, has been to a Buc-ee's. Some Dutch fans. Let's look at old Scott. Scott Mann has tried chicken fried steak. And they ran out of Sam Adams in Boston. Not good. George Somerville, who has been on the show before and been a friend of ours for a long time, and actually didn't just show up in America. He's been here before and he's coming again. George, first of all, it's mid-evening in Scotland. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Paul. It's always a delight and a pleasure to spend some time with you. But yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you.
I want to talk about you for a second before we get to what's going on in America. You've been doing a podcast. You've had many of our friends and colleagues on. When did all that start?
Well, I've been writing about college football for over 10 years now. I mean, I started writing about the NFL and logical kind of journey from there is into college football. And so I've been writing for that length of time. We've been doing the podcast. This is now our eighth season of the podcast. And we started doing it somewhat reluctantly because the outlet that we were writing for wanted to have a college football podcast. So we started doing that, and it's really snowballed from there, to be honest. And as I say, we were about to enter into our eighth season of covering the sport that all three of us really love.
And I know you've gained quite a following over here in the States because you've met a number of people, and obviously you've had a number of people on your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we met the last time, I talked about the kind of split between our UK and Ireland audience and the US audience, and a really strange thing happened this year. The US audience started to outnumber the UK audience. I mean, I guess that we had a slightly different dynamic when we're talking about the game, and our accents certainly, I guess, help in that respect. But this is the first year that we've seen quite a significant shift in the audience base, but it's great. I mean, I love getting across. I've been traveling to States next year I'll have traveled to States for 30 years. I love getting across, and I love meeting everybody that we get to see when we're out and about. You know, like last year I was at Baton Rouge at Tiger Stadium. I was in Bryant-Denny, Alabama, and it's just fantastic to meet people when you get out there.
So, George, what's happening right now is pretty fascinating to us. I mean, we're seeing a bunch of Europeans roaming around the South, looking like they just discovered a new continent, which they have. This guy, Freddie, for whatever reason, became the viral sensation. He's a German. He was heading, I think, to Houston, and he stopped off in not only Auburn, but Baton Rouge, went to a Buc-ee's. I'm sure you've kept up with all this, but just give us a little taste of what it's like over in the UK, watching this crazy American culture be experienced by some of your brethren.
Well, I stopped following Freddie when he got DM'd by Ella Langley. My jealousy took over, and I decided to stop watching him. But I mean, it's fantastic to watch. You know, I think it's hard to see social media without seeing the Scottish fan base on it, and I know they've largely been located in the north, in Boston, but they are starting to trickle down. Our last game is in Miami, so I've seen some videos of the Scots making it to Nashville, which I'm sure is in a town which will embrace the Scottish drinking culture. But you know, outside of that, you know, the Japanese, the Norwegians, everybody just seems to be having the time of their lives. And I think what you've got, well, I was going to say two cultures, but I mean in terms of the USA versus the rest of the world. You've got these two cultures who just universally are loving being together. You know, the American citizenship seem to just be taking to the World Cup fans with open arms. Certainly that is more than the case in Boston. And I mean, I can speak with some authenticity about the Scottish fan base who always travel en masse, irrespective. The World Cup could be in, Kazakhstan, and you would have 10,000 Scots there. But they love to travel, they love to meet people, they love to immerse themselves in the culture. And for a lot of these Scottish people, that this could well be the first time that they've been to the States. So then I think what you see is the Waffle House type scenario where people make it, have biscuits and gravy for the first time. And with the advent and the power of social media, we're now getting to see that. So sitting back home, I've been asked a few times if I'm a little jealous sitting back home and not being in the States. And I never planned to come to the World Cup, but I have to say, watching the videos, it just looks like the best time that everyone's having.
So, I mean, we obviously are experiencing it. Soccer isn't new, but this is quite an experience for many, many people. How do you describe soccer in your world? England's off to it was a crazy game the other day. Scotland's playing tomorrow. America's playing tomorrow. How important is soccer in your culture?
Well, I mean, soccer is everything. In Scottish culture, Scottish is by far the predominant sport that's followed. I mean, by a huge margin, and that's replicated across the rest of the UK and into Europe. So, Saturdays where you are, Saturdays are all about college football, and in the UK, Saturdays are all about soccer. But what we do is, I guess every 2 years we've got the European Championships, which is a similar type of situation to the World Cup, but exclusively for European teams. But the World Cup is a coming together. It's a coming together for the nations. Everybody gets together. You put all your rivalries to one side and you cheer on. It doesn't matter if a player who's playing for your national team is a player for your rivals, your main rivals, and you cheer everybody on. And as we're seeing, back here in Scotland, we're seeing auditoriums filled with stands. 10, 15,000 people are going into venues which are usually reserved for concerts and the like, to watch on a big screen. So it unifies everybody, unifies the nation, and we all get swept along, and the highs and ultimately the lows, which I'm sure will follow Scotland at some point. We all get swept along in that wave, and it's fantastic to watch. It truly is. Every 4 years, it's quite an experience.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to. I've seen soccer, I've covered Olympic soccer, but I went to my friend Danny Bramlett dragged me out to the Charlotte soccer in the MLS, and I was what was it called, Danny? The coronation. It was really fun and quite exciting, and it has, as you well know, it's taken over a great part of this country as well. But before you go, I need some SEC information. We've seen you at media days. We'll see you again soon. What are you most interested in with the SEC this fall?
Well, I mean, I guess it's this well-traveled argument that the SEC is finished as a contender in terms of the college football championship. I think what I'm really interested to see is how the teams are kind of reacting to that criticism, and actually how the middle of the pack is starting to to rise to the top. I think it could well be one of the most competitive SEC football seasons that we've seen in a long time. And how do the likes of Texas and Georgia react to that? For me, the SEC has just continued to get a harder and harder conference to participate in, which I think is largely ignored or missed by those outside of the conference. So can Vanderbilt continue to build? I watched your interview with Clark Lee yesterday, and can they continue to build? But kind of like the others, can Missouri really take a step forward? They've done fantastically well over the last 3 or 4 years under Eli Drinkwitz, but can they really take that step forward? And of course, what's going to happen with Alabama? This is a year where Kalen DeBoer is under a huge amount of pressure. I think schedule perhaps might be a little fortuitous to him this year, but I certainly think that he's got to go off to a flying start, and the schedule allows for that. You've talked already about the South Carolina game. I think it's probably quite pivotal in that respect. I think a defeat in his first 4 games starts to heap the pressure on him.
George, final question I have to ask you. It's 9/11 in Glasgow, and I've watched the British Open in many places in your country. Is it still light out right now?
It is, and it will be till about 11 p.m.
Oh my goodness.
When I was watching the Scotland game the other day, it kicked off at 2 a.m. our time, and at 3:45 a.m. it was daylight. So it'll go dark just after 11, and it's daylight by 3:30. So this is the time of year where we get a lot of daylight.
Wow. Always great to see you. See you in a couple of weeks. George Somerville, a great friend of ours, who has a very well-respected podcast over in Glasgow. That was fantastic. We'll take a short break. More to come right after this.